Welcome everyone to the second webinar in the Noble series, Preparing Students for the Global Workplace. My name is Mary Reisner. I'm at the Center for Latin American Studies at the University of Florida. And I'm also the founder of Noble, the network of business language educators. And our invited guest tonight is Kristen Blees of Castle View High School in Colorado. And am I saying it wrong? Did I say wrong school?
No, that's right.
Castle View High School. All right. So we had the cameras on just for a minute for you guys to see us at the beginning, but I'm going to go ahead and we're going to stop the webcams just so it doesn't slow up anything with the system as we go along. And then at the end, if everything's going well, we'll turn the cameras back on towards the end. Okay. So we're going to hit stop webcam. All right. So I want to thank you all for joining us tonight and welcome. Got my Wordle up. I love Wordles. Already introduced me and Kristen. And then I wanted to ask you all where you are from. If you can type in the chat box. In the Illuminate software, there was a way to everybody could take a little wand and put your spot on the map, and I haven't figured out how to do that with Adobe Connect, so I'm working on that. Okay, yay! All right, Crystal River, Florida, Uruguay, yay! Naples. Oh, okay, from Ukraine, cool. Well, welcome everyone. We're glad that you joined us, and I wanted to ask. Okay, well, you know what? Actually, I know. I actually know where the four of you got how you found out about the webinar. We'll go ahead to talk a little bit about Adobe Connect, which I think you all seem pretty familiar. You already are typing into the chat box. Kristen and I will have the mic for now, and at the end, I can turn the mics on for Q&A, and we just want to keep the mics off for the moment so we don't have feedback and noise coming from everyone. So as we're kind of going through our conversation with Kristen, if you want to type in questions while you're thinking about them in the chat box so you don't forget, and then we can go through them little by little. Welcome, I see Linda. I think Linda Markley has just signed in. Glad you've joined us. Linda, can you tell? I don't know if she heard you.
Hi, Linda.
Can you type in the text box, Linda, with your iPad? I know last time there were some complications using iPad, but so that's kind of going to be our format, is typing in the chat box, and then we'll turn on people's microphones. So I did want to put a plug in for upcoming webinars. They'll all be listed on the Noble website and on our Facebook page. The next one is January 28th with Darcy Lear, a career coach, talking about how students can leverage their foreign language major courses, skills in the workplace. For those of you that haven't gone to the Noble website yet, you can go there to check for future webinars, some of the resources that Kristen's going to talk about, and some of her presentations and materials are on that website. You can see her under the Develop a Program page here in this slide. And we actually have another teacher here tonight who's also working on Spanish for Leadership course, Danica Cornelius. She's joined us. And another night she might come and talk about what she's doing with her Spanish for Leadership course. So there we've got that. So Kristen, I've taken some of the slides from your old presentations and sprinkled in here. So now we'll go ahead and get started. And start asking Kristen some questions on the course. So, how did you first become interested in creating a course like this?
Well, at our school, we have students who advance through Spanish fairly rapidly because we're on the 4x4 block schedule. We are a public high school, but we do have a schedule that's more college-like, where students take one full course in one semester. So they're able to take two levels of a language in 1 year. And we were having a number of students get through our level 5 class by their beginning of their junior year, or sometimes at the end of their sophomore year, depending how much language they had in middle school or elementary. And so we needed to offer more classes because they just wanted more Spanish. And we had originally thought about having like a Spanish for business class or a Spanish for medical purposes class. And we ended up deciding to do this Spanish for leadership class to kind of involve all the students of all different career interests, not just future doctors or future business people. So that's how I got started creating this class, was purely student interest. They wanted another Spanish class, and they weren't looking for something grammar based. They wanted something that was going to help them in the real world in this 21st global century.
Okay. And actually, one of my questions was going to be, how did you decide on the course title, which you kind of answered there. And I just want to highlight that because I think that is such a key point when you're designing these kind of courses for students, is you want to make it broad and interesting and where they're going to see the most value because I think Annie Abbott, our last guest speaker in December, kind of talked about this. Sometimes we go too narrow, and then that eliminates. So the
Well,
Spanish for
speaking of
leadership.
Annie Abbott, it was actually I came up with the idea for the Spanish for Leadership course after hearing a presentation she gave at was it the FIU? Is that what it is? The
FIU
conference in
K through 12.
January?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, the FIU K through 12 conference. That's where I first met Annie Abbott, and she's a professor for Spanish for specific or language for specific purpose classes in Chicago. And we were talking just about what she does in her classes, and I was taking notes and listening to other people talk. And it hit me that I want to offer this specialized class, but if I offer it for just Spanish for business, I'm eliminating the majority of the students at my school because, I mean, they want to do engineering, they want to do, medicine, they want to do acting, they want to do teaching and lawyers. And they wouldn't see the connection between a business class and their future Spanish use. And it just hit me when I was sitting there at that conference that I need to call it Spanish for leadership. Creating global leaders is kind of a buzzword these days. And it really worked. Everybody loved the idea, and it really hit a chord with our principal and our superintendent, and that's where that whole idea got started.
That is great. And Sherry Spain Long also has been working on materials in terms of kind of courses with the title for leadership because it brings in a lot more people. And since you mentioned the FIU K through 12 Business Language Conference, that's another resource for people to check on. And on the Noble site under events, there are a list of different business language or language for career type events that you can look for and try to attend. Kristen's actually gone to a couple, and cyber funding and Noble funding actually help get teachers to go and present and share their great ideas and the great things that they're doing in the classroom. One other plug I did want to put in was about the fact that this course is Spanish for leadership, but this can be for any language. And I tried to put that in the webinar information to try to get people outside Spanish, but I don't know if people paid attention. Katya, are you a Spanish teacher? Leslie's here. Hi, Leslie. Andrea's English teacher. Oh, Russian teacher. Great. Okay, because yeah, this model can be used for any language. So I'm so glad I remembered to ask the question what language people teach. And Darcy has a comment. Great, that's good, Darcy. Okay. And Linda's got a comment here. Okay, so we'll kind of come through the comments. Business Russian second semester. Oh, wonderful. Okay. So we'll come back to some of the comments. So Kristen, you described the course a little bit, but could you talk a little bit more about your vision of the course? Because I think everyone that does a Spanish for Leaders or fill in the language name and for leadership type of course, they're all going to have kind of a different idea. I'm sure the way Donica sets hers up is different, but what was your vision for the course? What were kind of the main elements for you that were important?
Well, first of all, I wanted to give my Spanish students more opportunities to study the language. I didn't want them to say, "Oh well, there are no more classes available. I guess I'm done studying Spanish." Obviously, I want them to keep taking it for as long as possible. Also, I wanted the class to be something they could connect to their real life outside of the classroom. A lot of times, students, just think school is school and it doesn't have any relevance to outside those four walls. So I really wanted to create a class that would help them either immediately in their life or in their future life, but help them connect with the society that they're living in. And I wanted a challenge for myself too with this class. I am not a business teacher. I've never worked in the business world. I have no business background unless you count being a cashier at Office Max. So for me, it was a challenge to learn some new content to teach through Spanish. It was fun for me as well.
Okay, well, those are all great thoughts. So you mentioned that you have block scheduling at your school, but I don't know, are there any other points maybe about the format of the course to give people some ideas on that?
It was a regular 1 credit class. So our kids had the class every day for an hour and a half for 1 semester. In a regular schedule, it would look like either if it's a alternating AB block schedule, every other day for an hour and a half for a full year, or 45 minutes every day all year long. But with our schedule, it was an hour and a half every day for just 1 semester. It was fourth period, which was, I wish it wouldn't have been fourth period at our school because a lot of students have off hour where they leave school early to go work. And so that did decrease the numbers of students I had enrolled because they weren't able to take the class because they were actually out working that hour instead.
Uh-huh. Okay, and did you say it was an elective?
It's an upper level elective at our school for
Okay.
any language class that is above level 3 is considered a fine arts elective or just a general elective.
Okay. And I think it's interesting and noteworthy that Kristen actually got this kind of a program course started in a public school because usually I find when I go to a lot of conferences and really cool things are going on, a lot of times it's at a private school because they can kind of do more things without being limited by state um, whatever mandates or regulations. So I think it's great that this was able to happen. So my next question, Kristen, is for you to kind of talk a little bit about your school context and how were you able to get this approved with your administrators, the community, the parents, or whoever the stakeholders involved were?
Yeah, like I said, my school is just a regular public school. We're in a school district with 9 high schools. It's a middle to upper middle class kind of community with really great support for education. Our principal is very forward thinking and encourages us to think outside the box with our teaching, with our classes, and encourages us to think of what we can offer students that will help them in the future. So when I realized we needed another Spanish class, I started thinking about the Spanish for Business idea. and started to do some research online, and that's where I found the FIU conference. And so I went and talked to him about how we need to start another class and how I have no background in Spanish for business, and would he support me in going to this conference. And he did help. He provided my sub days so I could go. And so that was the first step, getting him on board, really talking to him about the need our students had, that they needed another language class and they needed a class that would help them in the real world, quote unquote. I mean, all our classes help them in the real world, but a more overt connection for the students. So I got him on board, and once he was on board, he really talked it up with the superintendent and helped me along the way. He also helped me go to a cyber conference. Luckily, that cyber conference was in March after the January FIU conference, and it fell during my spring break week. So he was able to help me pay for the hotel room for that one since he didn't need to pay for a sub. And that's a conference where I met Mary at and made more connections and started thinking and being able to develop some ideas of what this class would look like. There weren't a lot of examples out there, different model programs, different curriculums to steal from per se. A lot of what was going on in this area was done at the university level, which those students have different needs than my students were going to have. But I was able to take bits and pieces from all these different conferences and sessions I was going to kind of formulate what this class might look like in my head. So after attending the conferences, I came back to my school district, and I didn't want this to be the Kristen Bleeth Spanish class. I wanted to get other teachers on board. So I invited other Spanish teachers from my school, from the other high schools in the district, to come and meet and brainstorm ideas on what would this class look like, what would be some things you think this class should include. And by getting their buy-in, it really helped to get people talking about it. With the buy-in, I also sent out surveys to our Spanish students and to the parents of our Spanish students to get their feedback on, would they be interested in a class like this? Would they support a trip abroad that was connected to this class? And with those surveys, then I was getting more buy-in still from now the community, and the students were getting excited, like, oh, what's a Spanish for Leadership class? Oh, it's only for Spanish and not French and German. And so it was creating a buzz. At that point, we kind of had the class very, very roughly outlined, just enough to fill out a proposal for the superintendent to get a new course on the books. And so I did all the paperwork for that. I had to get signatures from teachers at other schools for that. So it was good that I had asked them to be on board earlier because they were very willing to sign and support this class proposal. My principal was obviously on board, and the superintendent and the school board signed off on it the first round. They didn't ask for any revisions. They thought it was a great idea because it had the word leadership in it and, global 21st century. So that's kind of how we got the ball rolling.
Okay, great. So once you had their buy-in and everything, I remember there were some kind of documents and paperwork, and that is posted on the Noble website. What you had to do?
That was the session proposal that I had to prepare for the superintendent and school board in order to get the class officially approved and in the course catalog for the school district.
Okay, and then that, I'm guessing, is going to vary by school district and state what those procedures are.
Yes, every district would have their own, but it would all be very similar. The same ideas would be asked.
Yeah, and that document is on the Noble website under the program development tab. So I think Danica might have used that when she, for her class as well, but it's a useful model so you don't have to start from zero. All right, so again, some of your preparation was through cyber conferences and professional development, but how did you come about finding some of your other resources?
One of the things that helped me sell this class to the principal and to the district was I didn't ask for any money to buy materials for this class. I did a lot of online research and found lots of articles and videos online using YouTube and just oodles and oodles of different web pages, Googling ideas that I had, heard talked about in these different conferences. So I spent zero money to create this class from the school. I guess I did buy a couple books, but I purchased those on my own, didn't ask the school for money. But as far as textbooks or workbooks, there was no big overhead cost to the school at all. Like I said, I just mostly kind of got ideas at these conferences I went to and then started brainstorming around those ideas and then Googling and YouTubing to find resources that would support those ideas in the target language. And I was able to find so much great information out there that I was able to use in my classes for free.
Yeah, and actually now, since Kristen kind of spearheaded this for, K through 12 level, and there may be, other people out there doing this, and I'd love to find them because I'm trying to bring everyone together in K through 12 doing this, so they don't have to start from zero. But now that Kristen has started this course, we identified Donica and another conference, and little by little, the circle keeps building, and I actually forgot to put a slide in here to show the pictures and the titles of some of the other courses. There's at least 5 or 6 other ones that I know of that are teaching these type of courses, and it's very helpful if we're all working together instead of everyone starting up completely on their own. So, oh, and then next, so you found some resources. How did you decide on the actual content or units or themes? How did you break down the course in that way?
Okay, I'm going to be honest. I wish I could say I backward planned, designed this. I didn't. I had a rough idea where I wanted to go, and each week I kind of created it as I went the first time around because there was a lot of information out there to sort through and figure out what I wanted to do with. So I did kind of just create it one unit at a time. Some of the things I started out with basic career skills in Spanish, how to create a cover letter, a resume, how to go through an interview, business cards. Students created their own business cards and learned the etiquette for business cards in different countries. So the very first unit was just basic skills that all students are going to need in English or Spanish in the future. And I was surprised that many of my students did not have those basic skills in English. So it was a great unit for them to really start thinking about their future. From there, we went on to independent studies on their specific career interest. In the class, I had everywhere from kids who want to work in the zoo to pediatricians to engineers to teachers. Oh my goodness, what else was in there? I mean, that's just a sampling of some of the careers. So they did independent projects where they looked at what is a day like in the life of one of these people. And they created kind of like, oh, I don't know, a project to show what kind of things they would need to know how to do and be good at for their career. What kind of qualities do these people have? They
Uh-huh.
created vocabulary lists that were specific to their career so they could start learning vocabulary that was related to what they want to do. Because my doctors could care less about the engineering vocabulary, and my zoologists could care less about the teaching vocabulary. But each set of vocab was important to those individual students, so they worked on that. We did a unit on cultural and business etiquette, and there are some great websites. I have the links in that PowerPoint that Mary said was shared on the Noble website. But looking at cultural etiquette, what to do when you arrive to a business meeting in Argentina versus Spain versus Mexico. And even though they have La Hora Latina, Does that apply in a business meeting? Does that apply if you're American? What happens if you go to someone's house? Do you bring a gift? What kind of gifts are acceptable? What things are taboo? And so we went into a lot of specific cultural and business etiquette things for different countries, and the kids did skits and projects and had a lot of fun with that. We looked at the qualities of a good leader. Online, I found a downloadable book by John C. Maxwell, and he has the English version, but I found the Spanish version of the 21 indispensable qualities of a leader. And so we studied those 21 qualities, and we looked at those in different world leaders, and we looked at how students can cultivate these leadership skills in themselves, and which skills do they already possess, which ones are ones they want to work on, which ones would be effective for their specific career desires. Another unit we did, and I got this idea from Danica, was bringing literature into the class. Up to this point, it's been a lot of writing and speaking and reading authentic articles, but Danica had the idea of looking at the Don Quixote and using literature in the classroom, looking at Don Quixote as a leader. What were his leadership qualities? And there's a unit created by a Stanford professor in the Stanford School of Business, I believe, who has a website with some good information to help with that unit. The overall, hands down favorite activity my class did was The Apprentice. We had, just like the TV show, we divided the class into two teams, and it lasted quite a while because each student on the team got a chance to be the project leader, just like on the TV show. And before we started, the students thought of different projects they wanted to do. So we did a marketing project where they had a bake sale and they had to market their product with a sign, an advertisement for it, and a description of it, and think about the packaging and the presentation of their product. And then, so that was one competition. We did a competition where they had to create advertisements for the Dumb Friends League, which is like an animal shelter here in town. And they had to help them with that campaign to adopt pets. Another project that they did a fundraising project to raise money to buy school supplies for a school in Costa Rica that we were going to visit that summer. So every week there was a different project that the kids helped decide on, so they had buy-in into these projects. And it was a short project, lasted started on Monday, ended on Friday. But each kid got a chance to be a project leader, and they got multiple choices to work as a team and use to work on their teamwork skills in Spanish. And at the end of each week, we had a rubric that the kids also helped create, where they evaluated the qualities of their project leader for the week, and they evaluated how their team members did.
Yeah, that
So
is
that
so
was
important in teamwork.
yeah. So those are some of the activities and things we included in the curriculum of this course.
Yeah, and that's great with so many that actually connected the students to the community. Annie does a lot of work like that at the university, but I don't know how many teachers at the high school level are able to do that. So it's great to hear that that's happening.
It's definitely harder to do, but if you can incorporate it, it doesn't have to be incorporated into every project, but if you can incorporate it once or twice and really get the kids using their Spanish outside the classroom. And another
Yeah,
way
exactly.
another way we got the kids to see their leadership skills outside the classroom was with this class, we organized a trip to Costa Rica. And it wasn't just a fun trip, although there was a lot of fun involved. It was a learning experience for the students. It was organized through a tour company here in Denver called Common Grounds International. And they focus on a lot of, they do a lot of work with medical students and pharmacy students and placing them in Costa Rica to live with families, to do coursework, and to get in the community and volunteer. So they're not about a tour type trip, although we did have some fun side trips. We started with a family stay in a small town where the students were hooked up with local teenagers to work on a project to help local sixth graders with math enrichment activities. So our students and the Costa Rican students worked together to create games and activities to help younger Costa Ricans learn math. I mean, so they were using all their leadership skills right there. We also went to a farm in the jungle, a chocolate farm, and the kids were a part of this family farm. They got up in the morning and they helped the family cook breakfast and clean up for breakfast, and we hiked up and over the mountains to their I don't know if it's called a grove or an orchard. I don't know where they have their cacao trees. And they got up and they, cut down the cacao fruits and they split them open and we cleaned out the seeds and we processed them and we made the chocolate with the family. So they learned how to work within a small community using their Spanish all day long. And they lived with the family as we did this for 4 days in the jungle. Um, what else did we do on the trip? Then we went to the beach and did, typical Costa Rican beach and sloths and monkeys and parrots and zip lining and all that fun stuff too. But we spent the first 2/3 of the trip really working on activities that would help the students use what we practice all year long in a real setting.
That sounds great. And how many students were in the class?
It was a small class, being it was an upper level class. We had 14 students,
Okay.
so not huge. Right now this semester I have a Spanish 5 conversation class, and it only has 8. So you get more students than the conversation class did.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's see. I have just a few more questions, and then we'll hand over the mic to everybody else. I did want to put up feedback from the students that you sent me that I included in some presentation, I forget, this past year. So Kristen asked this question: what did you like best about the class? You guys can read the comments here. Applicability to the real world. Prepare for getting a job using Spanish. So those, I thought that was really great feedback. And then she asked one other, is everybody, I'm going to go ahead and forward. Now it's not forwarding. How do you think the Spanish for Leadership class will help you use Spanish in the real world? So students obviously were very happy with the course. So a couple closing questions, Kristen. I just wanted to ask you what you would say were your biggest challenges throughout this whole process of developing the course, delivering, etc.
For me, the biggest challenge was I don't have any kind of business background. So I was always, trying to think, okay, what are the kids going to need? Where do I go with this project? I have this idea. How would I bring it about? So the big challenge for me was just not having the business background, but I was able to overcome that without too much stress and just not having the resources to um, just pull off the shelf and use, having to really look for materials that were good, quality materials that would work for my students.
Okay, and that's something we're hoping to solve soon as we compile the materials that these 5 or 6 teachers that are developing these kind of courses, as we compile that into a
And that's why I'm so
publication.
excited to help with these webinars is, if what I've done can help someone else start their course and make it a little less stressful and, give them some ideas and resources, great. Why reinvent the wheel, right?
Exactly, and that's why we got to work towards getting this all compiled, more organized, because I think when people see, you know, that hurdle isn't there, it will be a lot easier because everybody's got so much going on in the classroom right now. So what was the most fulfilling thing about the course for you? Like,
Definitely seeing the students' growth and enthusiasm for Spanish throughout the course. As one of the comments said, their Spanish became more sophisticated. It wasn't, basic classroom Spanish anymore. It sounded like real world Spanish, and they weren't afraid to use it in Costa Rica. And it was so incredible to be with a group of students where while we're on the bus, just a bunch of gringos driving on the bus, the students would still speak in Spanish to each other because, well, that's what you do. We're, friends from Spanish class and we're in Costa Rica. Obviously, we're going to be speaking Spanish. They weren't afraid to talk to the Ticos while we were in Costa Rica. They felt confident to take what they used in class and go out into the world with it. And for a Spanish teacher, I mean, isn't that exactly what we want?
Yeah, that's great. And maybe you said it at the beginning, but in terms of when this is offered, is it every other year, every year?
We, at our school, we offer it just every other year because we do have the conversation class we offer. And I
Uh-huh.
mean, we have right now 9 different Spanish classes. So we just don't have the student population to offer every class every semester. So in order to keep all classes going, we offer them every other year so that the kids who want it this year, will wait a year and take it next year. And this year they can, like, we have the Spanish 5 conversation class this year, and then next year, many of those kids will move on to the leadership class.
Okay, and what do you know, like what the population of your school is? Like, what's the enrollment?
Number wise, we have
Yeah.
1,800 kids.
Okay, so that's a big school. All right.
It's definitely not the biggest one in the area, but yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so I think those are my
I said we
questions.
don't have enough students, but yeah, we have 1,800 um, students in our school, but we also offer Spanish, French, German, Japanese, and sign language. So we offer
Oh,
five
wow.
languages. So
Yeah, that's great for a high school to offer that many languages. So, um, for some of the resources that Kristen talks about for her course proposal document, presentations that have some of this stuff written out, they're at this link on the Noble website. And then I want to turn the floor over to you guys. What idea, and Kristen, this is from your presentation also, I stole over here. um, so what ideas does the audience have? What questions do you have? And then Kristen can kind of scroll through the chat and see what people said and respond, because it's impossible to look through this when you're trying to think and answer questions.
I see earlier Andrea asked what kind of level my Spanish students were at and if I have heritage speakers. I only had one heritage speaker in the class. The rest were 100% gringos who started studying Spanish either in middle school or as freshmen in high school. And their level is what you think it'd be for a Spanish 4 student. I had a student who really couldn't put a sentence together very well. I had her in Spanish 4 and she got a C. She went to my leadership class. She really started to get it. It started to click. And then she went on to the AP class after the leadership class and she passed the Spanish AP test. Whereas um, before this class, before this experience of being able to really use a language, her skills weren't so great. So my students are just normal high school students. Most of them don't have any outside language experience. Yeah, maybe they went to Cancun on a family vacation once or something, but that's really about it.
Okay, do you see any other questions in there? Let's see. Okay, we got like quite a few comments.
Linda's question, would my principal Jim be willing to be interviewed and recorded? Probably. I could ask him. He's a great principal and he is super supportive of any and all cultural ideas we have for our school. We have Paraguayan students who just arrived last night for a 4-week exchange at our school. We had 2 Spanish students who came over for the first 10 weeks of school. He is letting us bring in a Puerto Rican singer for a concert. He encourages us to have our World Language Week. So our principal is really supportive of bringing culture to our kids because we're a pretty predominant Caucasian community, and so he wants to bring culture into our school as much as possible. So he may be willing, Linda, to be interviewed. I can ask him.
Yeah, I don't know if he would do an actual webinar.
I
That
don't
would
think he'd
be
do a
awesome.
webinar, but
Yeah,
he could
yeah,
do a little interview you could post or something.
yeah, and we could actually try to interview all the principals that are involved with the different courses, Katrina, Donica, Melissa, and get, at least if we got 5 administrators promoting this, I think that could be some really great progress.
Yeah, he'd be willing
Um,
to do that. I would
and then
think.
Martha had a question about course number. Do you know if the state has a course number for public high schools to offer this course?
A state number? No.
Yeah, you just did it by district. I think in Florida you have to approve it at the state level. I don't know if you can do it at the district level.
Yeah, Danica might know about that one. I don't know. But in Colorado, courses are approved by the school district, not by the state.
Okay. Another question here. Have any of the other schools in your district offered this course yet?
I was hoping someone would offer it the same year I did, but everybody said, no, you go ahead and do it. And you let us know how it works, and then you pass everything off onto us. So it's on the books now, so we're registering currently. For next school year, we'll be registering in a couple weeks. So hopefully some of the schools will be having it on for next year. Because I have been asked about it, so there is interest.
Okay, and Katya, you asked about the Stanford School of Business. Maybe while we're still talking, Danica can Google that and put the link in the chat box. And guys, I've given microphone rights, so if people want to raise their hand and then you can ask the question instead of having to type it.
Danica, are you looking up the Stanford School of Business stuff, or do you want me to look it up?
Or maybe she stepped away.
I can go look it up quick.
Yeah, Annie's got a question. How did students research the jobs that they were interested in? Did they interview current practicing professionals, research on the web?
It was all on the web. I wish I would have included the step that they had to contact a professional and have real life communication with them. I didn't, but if I were to do it over, I would have them make contact with someone in that field. But yeah, it was all online. I guess one other activity I did that I forgot to mention was I just through my personal connections around the Spanish speaking world, I had Skype visits with different professionals. So I had a lawyer from Argentina Skype in. I had a politician from Mexico Skype in. I had one of my friends from Colombia who has a job at a bookstore. So not even like a professional type job, but just work experience in Colombia. So I had 4 or 5 different Skype visits for the kids, and they really enjoyed that because they were able to feel really good about their Spanish, being able to understand and be understood by a native speaker using Skype.
Yeah, and Kristen, I think pointing out teachers' personal context that you have, it's not like you have to go and cold call businesses. You know, teachers have their own connections, and you can ask the kids in your class. I mean, you might have one of your kids' dad might be CEO or mom might be CEO of some company or a small business in town, and that facilitates through personal connections, even though you can, you know, make those connections going to binational chambers and things.
I just put up the link to the Don Quixote unit from.
So did I. We got it up there twice.
Okay, but
so no, that's.
I wanted to add that I actually emailed him and corresponded with him on some questions I had, and he was more than happy to respond to my emails. So even though he's a big Stanford professor, he was interested in what I was doing and willing to answer my questions.
Yeah, and I think that's another key thing to point out is with now with social media and people so connected online, people are great responding because they want to talk about their work and they want to share their ideas.
Hmm.
Okay, we got to, and you don't want to try on the microphone next time, but we'll answer it off the text now.
Okay,
You
so
see it?
and to answer your question, I'm a very communicative type teacher. I always try to get my students using the language, speaking in the language. And as it was an upper level class, obviously it was all taught in Spanish. But even though it wasn't a grammar focused class, I did bring in grammar tips for the students. And we talked about subjunctive or different structures the kids would need to use in different situations. Commands if you're at a meeting and you want to politely ask something, or whatever the case may be. So I did bring in grammar to the class, although it was not a focus. It was as needed for the units we were doing. Um,
Okay, and then Katya's got a question above Annie's.
I didn't see. I'm gonna go back and check. I don't see Katya's question. What is it?
It was right above Annie's. How did you guide students
Oh,
about the day of the certain professionals in the other country? I think maybe when you
I had them
they when
prepare
you
questions ahead of time. The day before we would talk about the country a little bit, so they had some background of where this person was coming from, and we would talk about the job or career of this person and who they were. And so they were able to ask intelligent questions, not just, como te llama, what's your name? Where do you live? What's Chile like? They knew that. They had that background. They came in prepared to ask questions that they were interested in about working in Argentina or, etiquette in Argentina in a certain situation or the lawyer had talked about connections, people he knew, and it came out that he knew Messi and who's a soccer player, and one of my students is fascinated with Messi. So we had a whole little branch of the conversation where we talked about Argentinian soccer, and the kids loved it. I mean, it just kind of things organically happened also during the conversations. It definitely wasn't all planned in script.
and is that in Spanish, Kristen, or in English when they talk to the people on Skype?
Oh, it was all in Spanish. This class was
Oh,
100%
great.
Spanish.
Awesome. Okay.
Yeah.
Annie's got
Annie,
another.
I like your question. Did I develop leadership skills? I think so because, I had never read John Maxwell's 21 Qualities of a Highly Effective Leader. And looking, into the leaders of the world and what made them good leaders, it really made me think, in my teaching and in my work atmosphere, what I was doing to bring leadership into my school. And, was I modeling what I told my students? And, we had the whole business card thing, and my students asked for my business card. I was like, yeah, I don't have one. So I went out and I had business cards made. Forgot to bring them to ACTFL, but I had them made.
Yeah, and not just because Kristen offered this course. I think she was already on her way to being president, but she is president of the Colorado Foreign Language Association. And I was grateful she agreed to do this when she has a big state conference coming up in a month.
It's getting
So
there.
she's
I'm
very,
almost
very
ready for the
dedicated.
conference. Not quite. It only keeps me up at night like 3 nights a week now instead of 5.
Okay, questions, comments? I've opened the mic up if anybody wants to take the mic instead of typing. I don't know if Kristen has more comments.
I don't have anything else unless you all have any more questions for me.
Contact information I'm putting up here. Okay,
This is my email till the end of the school year. I'm unfortunately will be leaving my school district at the end of the school year, but you can still get in touch with me if you have questions. I'll still have all my information. I can happy to forward to you. And my personal email is just Kristen Blees. So it's the same as my school email, but without the dot. All one word, Kristen Blees at Yahoo.
Okay, good. I wasn't sure if I should put your personal one up there or not, so.
That's fine.
Okay, well, I want to thank everyone for joining us tonight, if no one has any more questions. And I do want to do another little commercial for upcoming webinars. And Darcy's back on. I mentioned this at the beginning, but I want to mention it again. Darcy, our career coach, will be talking about students' own careers as a specific purpose. Leslie, who will be connecting again with us from Chile, will be talking about a really cool project that she works on for promoting global careers. And then another high school teacher will be, Melissa Suar, will be talking about her medical Spanish class. And we have some more webinars coming up in March and April, but I didn't want to confuse things too much. So I hope you'll all log in again, spread the word to colleagues and friends. And I'm going to contemplate if I switch to GoToWebinar or not at some point, so people get reminders and it stays on people's calendars, because it's really hard.